Monday's here. How we all doing? Did we have a good Mother's Day weekend? I hope all the moms enjoyed their weekends. Margaretta, look at you, hand right up, ready to go. Monday morning, had your coffee. Let's go. What do you got?
I am so freaking excited. I've been waiting for this call.
All right, that's what
So
that's what we want.
the
We
reason
want you guys jotting this stuff down. So excited. What do you got?
I am because for me it's been monumental. I just would love to share with this group because I feel like it's obviously going to help us. I got my appraisal license. I passed all the damn exams. It was a bit challenging for me because I haven't studied or been in classes or passing those exams ever, like in decades. So I am stoked. 3 exams passed fantastically, and I'm ready to go. So I already have a company I'd probably be joining, and just ready to make my thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't even know you were on that journey. So really, really excited for you. I want to come back to this. I want to just talk all about it. I want to understand what that process was like, what you had to do. I don't know if you've got to put certain hours in now in the field, but this would be just great for all of us to understand. So let's come back to that. I do want to just give the floor up. Does anybody else have something? What happened this weekend? What are we excited about? Any wins? What do we got? The silence. The silence brings the goodness. I've learned this. I've got to be more patient. Because when you guys feel the silence, I feel like then you go, all right, I guess I'll say what I have to say. We need one more voice before we come back to Margaretta. Somebody share us something. What do we got? Holy moly, you guys. All right, Margaretta, appraisals it is. So just talk to us a little bit about the process of like how many hours did you have to, for in different states for us? Maybe we got to do 40 hours of classroom time, then we got to pass the test. What did you have to do there on the appraisal stuff?
So this is from Massachusetts. So there's 3 different parts. Well, technically 4. There's one. It's like 4 class sections. One is like 4 hours, just kind of give you more ethical approach to doing the appraisals while you are working with someone. But the big ones is the basics of appraisals, which is 30 hours at minimum. It took me more like 90. Unfortunately, because you're not used to and I took it all online, so that's another new thing for me, which I was not used to. So that was a totally new ball of wax for me, but I finally got through it. And so that was a 30 hours at minimum, and you have to pass a test, and this is proctor test, so somebody's monitoring you. Then there's another a 30-hour minimum, which took probably about 45, 50 hours for me on that one, and you have to pass a test. And that one is appraisal, like application kind of thing. And then there's the US PAP test, which is lenders also have to take it. It's technically a 15-hour course. That one was taught live through Zoom type of thing. And that's very specific on the actual procedures and like it's like the book of their codes kind of situation. And now that just had like an associate appraiser. So now you have to work, I believe it's 1,000 hours with an appraiser as a supervisory position, and go to appraisals and create the reports and be contributing to them. I've already gone to a few of those. It is cool to being a realtor, but it's a very specific thing. One thing they teach you about appraisals is you cannot mislead people because it's such an ethical thing, and it's about keeping the strength of the opinion and value of the opinion, so like concrete and specific. So realtors, we do more of an estimation of value, like it's versus appraisals. If I'm acting as an appraiser, I have to say I'm acting as an appraiser, and I'm giving you my appraisal value versus as a realtor, because I am a realtor as well. It's a very different thing. So you have to be very clear. You, for example, like you cannot even have the same business card with both things on it. There's one appraisal, and there's, you have to have for appraisal versus a realtor business card.
So if I'm
Does that
if
make
I'm
sense?
understanding you correctly here, anybody that's doing an appraisal for any of our transactions should have already done 1,000 hours under supervised, under a licensed appraiser. Is that?
No, no. So the 1,000 hours you're going to be doing with the person. So I mean, you've done that coursework and you passed 3 exams, but
Yep.
the actual field work, if you want to call it, that's 1,000 hours to get the actual license
Right, but
appraiser
so
license.
could you in the status that you're at right now, could you get assigned to one of our appraisals for a realtor
I could, but I would not be doing it by
by
myself.
yourself?
I would
Right.
be like, so
That's
I'm be,
yeah. That's what I'm
yeah.
trying to say. Like what I'm trying to lead to is like I think a lot of times we get a little frustrated with the appraisers, right? And especially when they don't come in at value. But I mean, clearly this is not something you just pass a test and you're going out doing appraisals. You're doing 1,000 hours, right? I don't know how many appraisals. What do they say, Margareta? How many like one appraisal? What can you attribute to? Can you say that it took you 4 hours? So do you really have to do 250 appraisal? Like, how do they judge the hours?
Well, it's so with this, it's so different. The mindset that I think that was the hardest part about passing those tests. I failed the first one. I was honest. I'm like, I'm never gonna make it. This is never gonna happen. Like, keep going. Just gotta start learning. And it's such a mindset. So what it is, it depends on the scope of work as defined by the client. And remember, besides ethics behind it, it's also very private. So it depends. Like if it's just a residential, I think that one might take, and it depends on like which approach. Like if, for example, if they limit the approach use because you can do a cost value analysis versus actual, valuation. So there's 3 different ways of approach the analysis, and you technically have to do that for every single property unless you're limited. So it depends what you get. But I think if you just general like appraisal, like what we're looking for in real estate for lending, I mean, that probably takes about, 2 days, 3 days, depends on the property, because then you could have issues with like, because as an appraiser, you really have to be very specific on the comps. And then you might have to adjust it, like from a different years if you can't find the correct ones. And then also, if there's any liens against it, or if there's any any property issues with the town, you have to really dive into it. So
Well,
that might take time.
I gotta pause you there. I thought I heard you say 2 to 3 days. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm talking, how many hours could you attribute? Like, for you, you got to get your 1,000 hours. You're not telling me you could attribute 16 hours because you went out and looked at one property and you're doing it with another, licensed appraiser. You can't say that there's 16 of your hours there.
No, and
No.
again, I haven't done any of those hours accumulation,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I guess
Okay.
that's my answer. I know
Well,
that
come
it
back.
takes them like sometimes that many hours, to do from full on appraisal perspective.
Yeah. Well, I'd be curious just to know, it sounds like you're going to be involved in, you know, hundreds of appraisals before you'd ever be assigned to one of ours, which just gives me a little bit of confidence. I never really knew what the process was on the appraisal side. So I appreciate you sharing and knowing that, when we're meeting these appraisers out there, they have been through, a rigorous process, and I think for the most part, these guys they're not trying to be sticklers and kill a deal. I really do think they try and find the value if it's there. So, anybody just have any kind of questions while we're on appraisers or appraised value or anything like that? Maybe something weird that came up on a transaction that you were working on. Man, you guys are really on it today. All right, Lauren, what do you got? Thank you.
So actually not something appraisal, but I could come up with something, I'm sure. I was
Okay.
just going to say, could you imagine if agents had something like that, like hours tied to how many you had to shadow or partake in before you could handle transactions on yourself? That'd be wild.
Yeah, that would actually make some sense. how
Yeah.
about as a broker, if you actually had to do transactions before you could oversee other people's transactions?
What is
That
the
has
thing
always
that just
boggled
made
my
that
mind. You just need to hang around in the industry for 3 years and then you can be a broker and you can oversee other agents. This makes a ton of sense to me.
It's just one of those things. I've always thought about that with like our licenses and how convenient it is for how big of a transaction and numbers and legalities that we deal with. And we just kind of put it on people who have much higher expectations for their, licenses and things like that. Appraisal example here in home inspectors, where we seem to put blame in realtor roles a lot for them ruining transactions, right? We hear everybody putting blame on all these people. With the scope of what's required for our role and all of it is so minimal here.
Yeah. I'm actually working on a master class for real called The Art of the Deal. And I'm really, really excited to bring this to market where we're really going through, I think, what you actually need to learn to get your real estate license. So everything from pre-qualifying a buyer to doing the buyer's consult to calling the listing agent before you set up a showing to negotiating and writing the offer and repair requests and final walkthroughs and a how-to guide step by step with a bunch of different modules on this. So hoping to have that in the next week or two. I've got my slide deck pretty much done. I just got to get in front of a camera like this and record it. And yeah, I think this is the type of stuff that we all actually need to learn to be professionals. So I'll be anxious to get that out to you guys and get your feedback on it. But that is an exciting topic that I am working on that I think this industry needs. So, Lauren, I want to put you back on the spot. You had something on Friday that we couldn't get to. I don't know if you can remember what you wanted to chat about, but hopefully I can jog your memory and I can get you talking.
Yeah. Actually, now that you did just jog my memory because I had forgotten and I want to talk about it, it does somewhat tie into appraisal. For the new builds, the buyer and the seller who is the builder kind of a little back and forth on a couple funny things. Property advertised as 8 acres of land. The builder has actually sold off 3 acres of those land to neighbor already, but hadn't changed that anywhere until we were already in negotiations. So that, get through that, whatever. And now the buyer's questioning the square footage on the property, right? And so I was like, I haven't ever really put thought into who double checks all this. And so because it's a pretty large house, 3,800 square feet, they just want to assure that they're actually getting that size of property for what they're paying on it as well. So I guess the builder submits his spec sheets, with what size they're building it, but then I guess nobody really ever comes and checks, right? So we are looking out in this case because it was going to be a cash transaction, but they ended up deciding to finance a small portion of it. So we're actually getting an appraisal done now. So conversation with the lender, making sure that we have like a full appraisal because of it being such a small portion. I know sometimes they do like desk appraisals, things like that, to make sure that they're getting in there and actually measuring the entire property for us on the interior so that we can compare the size that we were told the house is to what we are told, what we are measuring the house at.
Yeah, that's interesting. Brett, I don't know if you're in a position to chat about this because I know you've probably been through this quite a bit. Are you in a position to talk? Maybe not. So yeah, I would assume, right, that process, like you're saying, we submit those blueprints, it gets approved, but then nobody's making like the builder could build whatever they want after that. I don't know if Meg is on. Meg has
Yeah, I had a
with
conversation with Meg about this
Yeah.
on Thursday last week, and she was like, "Good question. Nobody's actually ever asked." She's like, "It just sort of gets submitted and written off on, right?"
Yeah.
So appraisal was kind of her suggestion as well for the time when we can have everything measured again.
So Meg, are you in a position to chat on this one?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So yeah, I did speak with Lauren last week on it, and I know when we do have buyers who have or are utilizing loans, an appraiser does absolutely come out and measure. But in a cash situation, I don't know that there is a secondary check that's ever done in
So
terms of the size of the house that's being built.
so in theory, the builder could build whatever they want, and in theory, get away with that. Like if nobody ever checked.
Well, well, I mean, not, I mean, obviously, if you submit plans for a ranch and then all of a sudden a two-story home's being built, at some point the building department is going to come out and do one of their checks, and they're going to have on paper, hey, this is a ranch. Why are you building a colonial? So there are checks, but is someone getting out there with a laser measure and all that aside from an appraiser? No, I don't believe they are.
Yeah. Brett, looks like you are unmuted. Are you in a?
Yeah, sorry, I
That's
had
okay.
something going on over here. I mean, yeah, no one's checking, but it's hard, especially new construction, with the as-built and the site surveys. I mean, you're still building the foundation to size. It's hard to, kind of shrink the size of the house, after that fact, so it may not be inspected, but I think it's kind of hard to do to shrink the size of the house that you're selling to somebody.
Yeah. You might,
That answers that
what?
question.
Yeah. I mean, one of the rooms, I guess, could be a little bit bigger or smaller or something, depending on where you put a wall, right?
Yeah, but I mean, if the outside wall is still the outside wall, the inside, if you move one over 1 foot this way, the other room's another foot bigger or
Yep.
smaller, given, so
You won't lose the
it's tough,
square
but no one
footage.
checks.
Yeah.
No one checks.
The only thing we've had come up from time to time is, the HVAC people come out, and where, the plan may indicate the chase needs to go, the HVAC person may come out and say, no, this would be a better spot to put it, and that might either alter the size of a closet in a room or, might shrink, to your point, Steve, shrink the size of a room a little bit.
I mean, so regarding to HVAC, my biggest issue that I ever had, which came into a lawsuit, was an unfinished space. The trunks from the HVAC were in the mechanical room, and they were, on, to the ceiling in the unfinished space, which dropped the ceiling height down. And the buyer, was complaining that, the ceiling height isn't what was advertised, but even though it was an unfinished space room. So that's been my only issue in all my years was that. So it wasn't a diminishing square footage, it was just a ceiling height issue.
Ceiling height, yeah, because now you're running all those chases, and now I don't know how tall are those, 2 feet? So you lost 2 feet of height in that room.
Yeah, but it was always the biggest the problem why it shouldn't have been an issue. It was an unfinished space. The finished space still had the proper height.
Gotcha.
But
Gotcha. Interesting. I appreciate your guys' input on those. What else is going on out there? Margaretta, your hand is still up. What do you got? Is that just lingering?
No, just to clarify that. So the appraisal definitely, because I've been to appraisal with appraisals, and they definitely measure the rooms inside, outside the building, first floor, second floor, whatever floors. The only other thing I can suggest is, like, besides the building inspectors, if they check, like what he was mentioning, the dimensions, if it's not a appraisal situation, because obviously, there's also mass appraisals that are happening for the taxation. And but we know that a lot of the, town appraisers will not go out there sometimes, like into a year or so into the building. So, and some of those are considered based on the information that's already provided to town, based on the plans for the building of the house. So there might be an issue with sizing, except, everything has to be built to the plan. Just my 5 cents.
Thank you. Anybody else? Question around appraisals or the process? We are really getting the full gamut here. We now have home inspectors, lenders, licensed appraisers, insurance agents. We've got a full repertoire here on the show, which is awesome. Hey, something that I had written down as I was kind of building out that the art of the deal um, masterclass that I was touch base on. I don't think we've done it too much here, and I think this is a good time to touch on it because inventory is tight. When you guys are starting to work with a new client, I know we do a buyer intake, and ideally you're doing it on a form, so you're getting all the questions out that you should. And I think a mistake that a lot of agents make is we ask the buyer what they want. Okay, I'm looking for a 3-bedroom ranch, and I'm looking in these towns. And maybe we even, if we're a little advanced, we push back on that and say, when a buyer says, "Hey, I want Springfield and Agawam," right? Hey, what about Westfield? What about Southwick? Specifically, not asking a question like, "Hey, are there any other towns you would consider?" I want you to be specific. Name a couple of towns, name a couple of bordering towns, and see how they react to it. Right? So that's kind of the next level up, is not just taking their word for what they say they want, but really pushing it. Hey, I know you said 3 bedrooms, but what if we could find you a 2-bedroom that had some opportunity to finish off a basement? I know you said you wanted gas, but what if we found you a property that had oil that could be converted? I know you said we needed this size acreage, but what if we find you something that was only half an acre, not an acre, but it backed up to a state park, so it's going to feel like it's bigger, right? So I know you said this, but, right, and giving them, but I want to take it even a step further this morning, which is I think it'd be a really good idea to just ask the buyer to humor you a little bit and say, "Hey, I know you told me this. I just want to show you this property." And make it be something a little bit different from what they said they wanted, right? Just because inventory is slim right now, this should really get escalated. But just in general, I think this is a good practice. And the reason I say it is I know, buyers are liars. I know they don't know. They think they know, and they don't know. This happened to me. I said I would never buy a split level. I was in the business. I would show these split levels. I didn't love them. I've bought my last 2 houses have been split levels. So I really think it's important to get the buyer out into properties and then just listen. Literally watch facial expressions, watch the banter between 2 parties if it's a 2-party buyer, and just see what's going on because they don't know. And you can find a property that you're like, "Man, I didn't realize like how this could work or how this could feel." So I don't know. Let's just open it up. Anybody feel like, is this built into anybody's current process? And if not, do you think this is something that you could add in? What are we thinking? Anybody had this happen recently? Oh boy. Were people drinking heavily this weekend for Mother's Day? What happened? Did we get up late today? Linda.
Yes, so I don't use that consistently, but I like it a lot. And in certain instances where we've taken clients out and I really now have a super good sense of what they do like. If I start doing, in-depth searches and I find something that has these elements that I know they like, but it's not exactly what they said they're looking for, I will say to them, "You know what? I want you to humor me. I just want you to come and take a quick peek." I'll say a quick peek, then it doesn't sound like a heavy thing at this property, or I will fold it into when we're going out to see several properties. Oh, by the way, since we're out, I just wanted you to see this one. It popped up. I know it's not exactly where, in the area you said or whatever it is, but let's just go take a quick peek at this and let me know what you think. And so, yeah, it's been very beneficial. And to your point, people don't know what they want. They have an idea in their mind, but it's not set in stone, and once you start working with them and getting a little bit better sense of what appeals to them, then you can take that information and you can do a deep dive in doing your searching for them and find areas or homes or whatever where you go, ooh, I really think this is something that would appeal to them. So I mean, you have to, this is being, doing deep dives and being very specific. You can't just throw out, oh, let's go look at this thing, right? You'll lose them. It has to be when you have a very good sense of what these folks are digging. And to your point, you have to look at their eyes when you go into places. You have to listen to what they're saying and take that information then to go deeper and wider in your searches for them. And it's very, very effective. And they appreciate it a lot because they see that you are working for them. You're not just an Uber driver who's opening doors for them. And they really start to trust you a lot too when you do things like that and say, I was doing a search for you, and I really think this might appeal to you. They appreciate that very much. And
Yeah.
it's all part of it, right? It's good.
And I think if you preface it with, hey, this might not be the case for you, but I've had some clients in the past that told me they wanted a ranch and we ended up buying, a 2-story house. So I've just made it part of my process now that I take you outside of your buy box and just show you a couple of things that are completely different. Is that okay with you? If they're like, absolutely not, all I want is a 3-bedroom ranch, you idiot, right? Like, then don't do it. But I think if you preface it with why you're doing it, and that you've had it happen to other clients in the past that were adamant about 3-bedroom ranch and we end up buying X, Y, or Z, that's not that. And then if they really push back, then don't do it. But I think like Linda's saying, they're going to appreciate it. Lauren.
I just wanted to concur kind of with what Linda was saying there. I can't even tell you the number of times that I have brought a client to a property that was either in a different town or a different style or like some slightly different feature than they had told me they wanted, but I had picked up on, like she was saying, it has to be once you have that rapport build and know, to a property that they never would have looked at online because of, some of those restrictions, and it ended up being the one they bought. Like a lot, like a high percentage of the properties that I've sold.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, if it's happening to me as an agent who's in houses, this was probably 6, 7 years into my career. I had shown thousands of houses at that point, really thought I had a good picture of what I wanted for my own property, and then went completely different when the right property hit the market. So you got to be careful with this thing, and with limited inventory in New England right now, I think this is a good strategy. Could be just a good conversation. Could be like, hey, you've got a couple of buyers that you just can't seem to get them out. See if you can get them out on a property that wasn't exactly what they had reached out to you for. And maybe that'll be the difference, just getting them re-engaged. All right. I hope you guys put some deals together this weekend. I know Mondays are obviously a lot of times we're finishing up deals, highest and best, finals, and here and back. So I hope some of you guys get some good news today on a couple of the deals that you are working on, and we will do this again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.